At 7:03 a.m. on a humid July morning in Dahlonega, Georgia, the CEO of Northbridge Industries stood on the curb outside the Crimson Moon Cafe, staring at a cardboard sign that read, "I'm not hungry, just lonely." And in that single sentence, the richest man in town realized he had nothing. The bell above the diner door clinked like a thin dime, dropped into a wishing well. Behind it, Julian Hartley Forbes featured Tesla driving, stock market Maida stepped onto the sidewalk, already regretting the second espresso. His chest buzzed with caffeine and emptiness in equal measure. Across the street, the old courthouse clock chimed once for the half hour. Julian checked his Rolex. The courthouse was 4 minutes slow. He sighed, annoyed at time itself, and that was when he saw the man on the bench beneath the cedar tree. The man wore a faded Braves cap, duct-taped sneakers, and the unmistakable glow of someone who had already found what Julian spent every waking hour chasing. His beard was winter white, even though it was mid-summer. In his lap sat a small tin box, the kind grandmothers once filled with lemon bars. Every few seconds he lifted the lid, peeked inside, smiled, and closed it again as if checking on a sleeping firefly. Julian's first thought was the usual corporate calculus. Homeless, probably needs cash, maybe drugs. His second thought was guilt, because the man was humming. Not the broken whistle of someone resigned to fate, but a tune so light it made the crepe myrtle blossoms seem to sway on beat. Julian walked past, but a sudden Georgia downpour warm drops that smelled like copper pennies on hot pavements, him ducking back under the cedar. The homeless man looked up, eyes twinkling like creek stones in sunlight. "Morning, neighbor," the man said, as if they shared a porch instead of a planet. "Rain's polite. It knocks before it enters." Julian gave a curt nod, swiping rain from his sleeves. "You have a dry spot somewhere? I could call." "Already dry." The man patted the cedar trunk. "Tree owes me one. I read to her last week. Robert Frost." He opened the tin box again, then shut it. "I'm Marcus, by the way. And before you ask, no, I don't want your money. I want your minute." Julian almost laughed. His minutes were scheduled 6 months out. Yet the rain hammered the sidewalk like typing fingers, and the courthouse clock refused to tick faster. So he stayed. Marcus gestured to the bench. "Sit. You look like a man trying to hold a river in his fist." Julian sat. Water dripped from cedar needles onto his collar, cool and strangely comforting. Marcus opened the tin, tilting it just enough for Julian to glimpse the inside. A single dried dandelion, a paperclip twisted into a heart, and a photograph of a woman with 1,970 curls. "Treasures," Marcus whispered. "Proof I've been rich longer than I've been broke." Julian swallowed. "How long?" 6 years since the house went. 4 since my wife, Rosie, danced her last waltz with cancer. 2 since I stopped counting days and started collecting moments instead. Marcus tapped the photo. "She used to say happiness hides in the smallest pockets. I didn't believe her until I had nothing left but pockets." Julian stared at his own reflection in a rain puddle tie askew, eyes bloodshot until the image blurred. He thought of the quarterly earnings call waiting, the private jet fueled, the mansion echoing with unplayed grand piano keys. Marcus snapped the tin shut. "Tell me, Mr. Rolex, when did a stranger last remind you you're not alone?" The question hung between them like the cedar scent rising with the steam. Julian tried to remember. Months? Years? Ever? His phone vibrated an alert for the morning's shareholder meeting. He silenced it without looking. Marcus leaned back. "I can see your thoughts racing like squirrels on a power line. Let me slow them down with a story." "I have to." "1 minute," Marcus said, holding up a finger tanned the color of Georgia clay. Then you can run back to your kingdom. Julian exhaled. 1 minute. Marcus smiled. Rosie and I used to eat at the Crimson Moon every Sunday. They serve a peach-lavender cobbler that makes grown men propose marriage to dessert plates. One rainy day, same as this, we saw a kid outside crying. His bike chain had snapped on the way to visit his grandma at the nursing home up on Hawkins Street. Rosie wrapped half our cobbler in a napkin, marched into the rain, and handed it to him. Kid took one bite and forgot the bike. That moment cost us $4.75. Rosie said it was the best investment we ever made. Marcus's voice cracked, just enough for the rain to catch it. After she passed, I kept coming back to that memory. Not the house, not the car, not the IRA statements, just cobbler and kindness. So I started collecting small things. A stranger's smile. The sound of the mail slot clinking when the postman delivers good news to someone else. The smell of fresh rain on Cedar like right now. Julian felt his throat tighten. He glanced at the Crimson Moon's neon sign flickering through the drizzle and noticed the lunch special scrawled on the window. Peach, lavender cobbler, while it lasts. Marcus continued. I wake up under this tree most mornings. The birds don't care if I have a 401 car. They sing anyway, and every afternoon, Mrs. Langford from the thrift store brings me a sandwich turkey, no mayo. We sit. She tells me about her grandson's cello recitals. I tell her Rosie stories. That sandwich is the best stock dividend I've ever earned. A sudden gust rattled the cedar, releasing a mist of cedar and water. Julian shivered, but not from cold. He pictured his own boardroom glass walls, leather chairs, people speaking in acronyms. When had any of them ever brought him a sandwich? Marcus stood, joints creaking like old porch boards. I'm heading to the library. They let me read the obituaries aloud in the back room keeps the names from disappearing. Want to walk with me? Julian checked his watch. The shareholder meeting had started 4 minutes ago. His CFO would be panicking, yet he found himself nodding. They walked side by side, rain softening to a hush. Passing the town square, they stopped at the bronze miner statue Dahlonaga's Gold Rush legacy, frozen mid-pickaxe. Marcus pulled a penny from his pocket, pressed it into Julian's palm. For your thoughts, he said. They're probably worth more than mine, but value's a funny thing. Julian closed his fist around the warm copper. Two don't know what I'm doing anymore. Marcus chuckled. Good, that's where the road starts. They reached the library steps. Marcus turned. I lied earlier. I do want something. Not money, a promise. Tomorrow, bring me one small thing that made you smile. Doesn't have to cost a cent, just has to be real. Julian opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded. Deal. Marcus tipped his cap and disappeared inside. That night, Julian skipped the jet. He drove his Tesla home on autopilot, windows down, letting the humid air slap him awake. Inside the mansion, he wandered room to room like a ghost auditing its own afterlife. The silence was so thick he heard the ice maker drop cubes into the bar sink. He found himself in the guest bedroom no one ever used, staring at a dusty photo of his parents at a lake cabin before success swallowed them whole. He picked up the phone, dialed his CFO, and said the most shocking words of his career. Postpone the merger. I need a week. The next morning, Julian returned to the bench. Marcus wasn't there. Instead, a note fluttered under a smooth river stone. Gone to help Mrs. Langford move boxes. Left you a starter kit. Beneath the note lay the tin box. Inside, the dandelion, the paperclip heart, and a new edition receipt for peach-lavender cobbler dated yesterday. Scrawled on the back, paid forward. M. Julian clutched the box, heart hammering. He walked to the Crimson Moon, bought 2 cobblers, and carried them to the nursing home on Hawkins Street. At the front desk, he asked for anyone who likes dessert. An aide led him to a sunroom where a teenage boy strummed a battered guitar for residents. Julian handed the boy a cobbler. The kid grinned, took a bite, then resumed playing. The room filled with off-key but earnest chords. Julian sat, listening, until an elderly woman patted the chair beside her. "You look like my grandson," she said. "He forgets to call." Julian swallowed. "I forget a lot of things." She smiled. "Sit anyway." They talked about weather, cardinals, and the best way to butter toast. When he left, she pressed a butterscotch candy into his hand. It rattled like a tiny bell in his pocket all the way back to the cedar tree. Marcus appeared at noon, carrying 2 library books and a tomato plant in a coffee can. "Thought you could use a project," he said, handing Julian the plant. "Tomatoes don't care about your net worth. They just want water and conversation." That evening, Julian repotted the plant on his marble kitchen island, dirt smudging the pristine surface. He found himself talking to it about quarterly projections and childhood dogs. The plant listened better than most executives. Days stacked like library books. Julian delivered groceries to Mr. Alvarez, the widower who lived on North Chastity Street and collected wind chimes. He read picture books to toddlers at the library while parents studied for GEDs. Each night, he added something new to Marcus's tin: a crayon drawing from a child, a movie stub from a free screening, a leaf shaped like a heart. One Friday, Marcus didn't show. Julian waited through church bells and cicadas until Mrs. Langford approached, eyes red. "Marcus is at Northeast Georgia Medical," she whispered. "Pneumonia. He's asking for you." Julian's world tilted. He drove too fast, heart syncopated with windshield wipers. In the hospital room, Marcus looked smaller under white sheets, but the smile remained unbreakable. "I'm not scared," Marcus rasped. "Just hate leaving before the harvest." Julian gripped his hand. "The tomatoes are taller than my ego." Marcus laughed, then coughed. "Told you happiness is a seed." He gestured to the bedside table. A fresh note waited. "Your turn to keep the box. Fill it until it overflows." Julian's throat closed. "Don't you dare give up." Marcus winked. "Not giving up. Graduating. Rosie's waiting. She promised Cobbler." That night, Julian sat in the dark hospital hallway, tin box on his lap. He opened it under dim fluorescent lights. Inside lay every small thing he'd collected, plus a new addition, Marcus's Braves cap folded gently like a prayer. Marcus died at sunrise. The nurses said he was humming. The funeral was held under the cedar tree. The whole town came: Mrs. Langford with sandwiches, the teenage guitarist with chords, the elderly woman with butterscotch. Julian stood in sneakers and jeans, Marcus's cap on his head. When the service ended, he turned to the crowd. "Marcus taught me that wealth isn't what you hoard, it's what you scatter. So here's my promise. Northbridge Industries will fund every community garden, literacy program, and meal train this county needs until the Cedar grows another ring." The crowd cheered, but Julian felt Marcus's quiet nod more than the applause. Months later, Julian returned to the bench. The tree had grown a little taller. Beside it, a plaque read, "Marcus's Library. Take a book, leave a moment." The tin box sat beneath, now a community treasure chest filled with pressed flowers, guitar picks, and recipes for peach-lavender cobbler. Julian opened his wallet, pulled out the penny Marcus gave him, and pressed it into the soil. Then he sat, listening to birds that didn't care about stock prices. As the courthouse clock struck noon, Julian looked into the camera, for this moment was being filmed by local news covering the garden's grand opening. Tears glistened, but his smile was wide. "If this moment touched you," he said, voice steady, "take a second to subscribe to The Kind Story, tap the like button, and share it with someone who needs this today." He paused, letting the cicadas fill the silence. What would you do in their place? Drop your feelings or a single emoji below? Then he stood, brushing cedar needles from his jeans. Now tell us your own kind story in the comments. Your words might become our next episode, because small-town kindness isn't a hashtag, it's a heartbeat. And Marcus taught us the heart only grows when it breaks open.